So you might as well eat the most vegan thing on the menu, which we often call grass-fed beef and lamb.
What? Welcome to Plant-Based News. My name is Joe, and we're going to do a little deep dive into the delusions in the carnivore world. Now, that's not actually a real interview. I just screenshot myself over it. But I was watching it and I was absolutely surprised that he said
the most vegan thing on the menu, which we often call grass-fed beef and lamb.
I mean, you have to really do some mental gymnastics to arrive at that. And that's what this video is going to be about. We're going to be looking at the confusion around the mythical healing properties of a carnivore diet. We're going to have a look at what I call the Beachy effect, which is why people benefit on these fad diets, but the real reason behind that. We're going to be having a look at how people deny the benefits that they've had on the vegan diet in the past. And we're also going to be looking at the delusion, which you saw in the very first clip, of the conviction that they're not causing any harm. It's mind-boggling. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to show you is how this movement is spreading. So very famous people are getting on board and they influence people around the world to follow them. And one of the absolute stand-ups in this area is Michaela Peterson.
What if the problem with reducing your animal intake is actually chronic health problems? And then what you have on one side is an increase in chronic health problems. And then that's suffering compared to the life of an animal.
So we're going to break down that logic a little bit later in this video, but I want to show you the kind of people who it's influencing, because it's not the one person at the top of the heap that's eating a carnivore diet that makes the difference here. It's the thousands of people that follow them. I just want to say I've got nothing against anybody featured in this video. I'm just looking at the carnivore diet and trying to understand more deeply why people do it. So let's take a look at some of the people that do.
I reference Michaela Peterson a lot because I feel like I am kind of in the same position as her, although she, I believe, does have to eat even more strict than I do. But she eats that way to simply not be sick anymore, and I am in the same boat.
Now, the first big delusion that you run into is what I call mythical healing, and it's this belief that by eating only meat, that you are going to heal everything in your body and all your previous ills. But it's not a fair comparison, because what they are doing, they are comparing a diet that is completely absent of refined sugar with a diet that where they were eating lots of sugar, right? So if you're eating a processed vegan diet with sugar and processed foods and you switch to only eating meat, that's almost like doing a detox. It's a weird detox, but it is the detox nonetheless. So initially there will be some improvements, but let's break this down and see what's really going on here.
Give a brief overview of the benefits that I have experienced since starting the carnivore diet specifically. Has first of all been, it is the only way of eating that has gotten my ulcerative colitis into actual remission.
So the very first thing she says is that the carnivore diet was the only way she got her ulcerative colitis into remission. But there's a bit more to it than that.
If I eat anything that causes any, even like minor amounts of inflammation, my digestion is one of the things that is affected, not severely. It is only if I keep my diet without seasonings and the, highest quality unprocessed animal products that I don't get inflammation and my digestion remains normal.
So she's eating a really strict carnivore diet and she's seeing her ulcerative colitis go into remission. That's the same as me saying as a diabetic, I'm eating a really high fat diet and my diabetes has gone into remission. It hasn't gone into remission. You were just avoiding the symptoms. Ulcerative colitis is caused by an omnivore diet.
Regarding it as a lifestyle disease caused mainly by our omnivorous diet.
And what this basically means is that you eat these foods, which they're not meant for you, they're packaged, processed foods. You eat that, you cause damage into your system, and it shows up in your body as colitis. And the way to fix it is to use dietary methods to heal your body. And a plant-based diet has been shown to do this.
A group of Japanese gastroenterologists have been providing a plant-based diet to all patients with IBD for over a decade and publishing extraordinary results, far better than have to date been reported in the medical literature.
So here's the thing. A vegan diet versus a carnivore diet regarding this illness, it gives you a much broader range of foods to eat. And that is a positive overall. But if you misuse it, it's a negative. You could be having croissants and sugar with jam and it's vegan. And I can pretty much assure you that that's going to aggravate any kind of colitis issues that you have going on. And in fact, I downloaded the study to have a look at what they were feeding them, and they had a point system showing more points the more healthy vegan food that you ate, and they had a negative point system for all of the sugar intake and the animal products. So they were doing a plant-based diet, a vegan diet that was a healthy one that would cure colitis. So it's disingenuous, although probably accidentally, to compare a very strict, almost fasting regime, fasting from the point of view that you're literally monomealing meat, versus being able to eat all kinds of foods that are vegan and saying one got rid of colitis and the other one didn't. What you've got to compare it to is a carnivore diet and what that involves, and a diet that is designed, that is vegan, but it's designed to eliminate the effects of colitis.
So how about a plant-based diet for relapse prevention in ulcerative colitis? Educational hospitalization meant bringing patients into the hospital to control their diet and educate them about the benefits of plant-based eating so they'd be more motivated to continue it at home. Most patients, about 3/4, experienced improvements such as disappearance or decrease in bloody stool during hospitalization. Fantastic. Okay, but here's the really exciting part. Then they followed the patients for 5 years, and 81% were able to remain in remission the whole time, and 98% were able to keep the disease at bay for at least a year. I mean, that blows other treatments away.
So if a plant-based diet blows other treatments away, why is this woman eating a carnivore diet? The reason is because if you do this in a way which is uneducated or unsupported and just eat vegan foods, you don't get the results you want. And I sympathize with her, because then you start to feel really ill. You get very frustrated with this plant-based diet that everyone's told you it's going to heal everything immediately. You find it doesn't, and you look for other options. And you find this very restrictive, super restrictive diet, and it provides you relief. And you attribute the benefit to the restricted food you're eating rather than the fact that you've stopped eating everything else, because that's what's happened. This person's got to the point now where they can't even eat dill without getting a reaction. That would be the same as me only eating fat and getting to the point where even the mildest vegetable causes a spike.
Most things give me inflammation. I haven't really been able to find anything that doesn't cause me inflammation, and I've had, like, say, organic dill on something, and I'll think that it's fine, and then within, like, if I have it for consecutive days, I do start to notice issues, which again are the things I highlighted: constipation, diarrhea, sometimes slight digestive pain, and breakouts especially.
And that's what ends up happening. You eat yourself into a corner because you've made it so restrictive now, and it's not healing the situation, it's just avoiding the triggers for the symptoms. And now when you eat anything, it causes major issues. Where when you go through the plant-based process with some guidance and some trial and error to find these foods that you want that help you, and then you start to broaden the selection of foods that you can have in an environment of healing, you end up going into true remission, where you can eat a wide variety of foods. Let's see what Dr. Greger has to say about that.
A plant-based diet was previously shown to be effective in both the active and quiescent stages of Crohn's disease. The current study has shown that a plant-based diet is effective in both the active and quiescent stages of ulcerative colitis as well. And so they did another study on even more severely affected cases with active disease and found the same thing, far beating out conventional drug therapy. People felt so much better, they were still eating more plant-based even 6 years later. The researchers conclude that a plant-based diet is effective for treating ulcerative colitis to prevent a relapse. Why? Well, plant-based diets are rich in fiber, which feeds our good gut bugs. That may partly explain why a plant-based diet prevents a variety of chronic diseases. And so that's what we may be seeing with inflammatory bowel disease, suggesting that replacing an omnivorous diet with a plant-based diet is the right approach.
So there you have it. The next delusion I'm calling the biscuit effect. I'll tell you why after the clip, but just watch it and see if you can see a common theme.
I definitely experienced some reverse aging. I also would say that my anxiety has done a complete 180, and on a daily basis, I'm so much more level-headed. I always had severe cravings. I can focus, I can retain things much better. I saw myself lean out. My teeth are, I would say, in the best health as they've ever been.
So why am I calling it the Bishi effect? Because Fred Bishi is a plant-based doctor who I met 20-something years ago when he was 70. He's like 92 right now. And he said something to me I'll never forget. He said, all fad diets work, and they work temporarily, but they all work because of what they leave out. It's such a good piece of wisdom. And what you notice with that clip is all of those symptoms that I mentioned are what happens when you cut out refined sugar. Check the list. So I literally just searched a random article on Google, what happens to your body when you cut out sugar? It's all pretty much known stuff, right? You reach your weight loss goals, leans out. Your skin's aging process will slow. That's what she said. Your cravings will decrease. That's what happened. You'll lower your risk of depression and cognitive decline. That covers anxiety and the capacity to focus. Your appetite and your hunger will decrease. That's absolutely what happens. You'll get fewer cavities. So that's the point. When you eliminate sugar from your diet, because you're only eating meat, you're going to get all of the benefits that you get with eliminating sugar, but they attribute it to the blocks of animal flesh that they're eating. It's almost absurd. It's almost absurd. But it's literally what happens when you cut out sugar. You don't have to go on a carnivore diet to get those benefits. If you're having some issues and you're eating a lot of sugar, cut the sugar back. You still stay vegan and you'll do just fine.
When I was vegan and I wasn't necessarily thinking about how much carbohydrates I was eating, I was eating, eating things with sugar.
So the point I'm making here is the carnivore diet, or any mono diet, is no more effective in healing chronic conditions than eating only avocados for 90 days. It's not going to make you vibrantly well because of what you're eating. It's going to help you because of what you're leaving out. Now, I don't recommend mono meals, but if you are eating too much sugar and you want to cut that out, and the only way you feel you can do it is get all of that kind of dopamine hit from following a really extreme diet, well, I present to you the potato diet. It's going to give you the exact same benefits as a carnivore diet, but it won't involve any animals. Take a look at the clip.
An Australian man who ate nothing but potatoes for an entire year has lost more than 100 pounds.
Subsisting solely on the root vegetable for every meal has led to a 52-kilogram weight loss.
I started out on the 1st of January to do a whole year of eating nothing but potatoes, and it's been incredible so far. I've lost so far 50 kilos, which is over 110 pounds. At the beginning of last year, I was diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety, and that's totally changed as well. I don't suffer with that anymore. My sleep is better, my concentration is better, my alertness is better, and my relationship with food has totally changed to the point where I don't rely on food at all for comfort and enjoyment and emotional support and things like that. And I think this has totally changed my life for the better, and I couldn't be happier with it all.
And there you have it, the Bishi effect. When it comes to these very, very restrictive diets, it's what you leave out that makes the difference, and that's why they work. But to be truly healthy, you want to heal your body in a way that you can eat a variety of foods, and that is what happens on the plant-based diet. And in my case, I've never been the healthiest person in the gang. I never have. But when I went plant-based, I found I could get an overall increased level of health from eating a wide variety of plant-based foods than I would with the wide variety of animal-based foods, because I was unable to restrict my diet and go on these very restrictive regimes, which is what the carnivore diet is. But so are some of the plant-based solutions. So the overall plant-based diet is what helped me, because it could meet my need to have a wide variety, not have to be super strict, still like what I eat, and see health gains as a result. And the next delusion I want to talk about is this absolutely interesting belief that it's not causing any harm.
And really the only negative thing about the carnivore diet is that I can't really go out to a restaurant, and I have to be very mindful of what I get. But it is something that I am willing to deal with because, again, I feel my best on a daily basis because of it. Otherwise, I really can't reference a negative thing about it.
It's really astonishing that they can turn a blind eye to the obvious suffering that's being caused. But it gets far worse than that. Take a look at this.
I thought I'd address specifically the non-violence question, or ahimsa. There is no ahimsa way of eating. every food involves the death and suffering of another animal.
So this is a more intellectual form of spiritualization of the killing of animals for food. So ahimsa is a term from the yogic Vedas, and it's also in Buddhism and Hinduism. And it refers to the act of violence. So you absolutely commit to not harming another creature. But it's a bit like veganism in that it's not consciously harming or not harming for the purpose of gain. It is not due to accidental harming, such as the fact that you find if you're harvesting crops. So they're conflating the act of being violent to the accidental deaths that occur when harvesting crops versus the deliberate incarceration and then killing of animals. And it's not the same. One is not a ahimsa praxis and the other one is, but they're blurring the lines here. And he continues.
Where does ahimsa begin? Am I going to subject my kids to even a remote chance of suffering like my firstborn did? Not a chance. Even though I agree with you about factory farming and buy good quality humanely killed meat whenever I can, would I feed factory meat to my kids if there was no choice? Damn right I would. And although I have tremendous respect for animals and deep gratitude and awareness when they become my food, I put humans first.
Now this guy's being somewhat honest in that he is basically saying that I'm going to put my family and humans first when it comes to animals. Fair enough. But where it's dishonest is that the whole thing is implying that you're causing harm by not giving animal foods to your children. That is the act of violence. That is where the ahimsa is being broken, by not giving your family animal foods and you're being violent by feeding them a plant-based diet. I mean, the logic behind it, it's pretty out there. It's pretty wacky. I think you could have a very good conversation with this guy on this topic, and I respect how seriously he takes it. But really and truly, there's only one thing I think that I could say. There is no non-violent way to eat an animal. There is no non-violent way to eat an animal. It's as simple as that. Now, I think they know this, and that's why a backup strategy or delusion is to address where is the health problem in our society. And what they're saying, which is quite amazing, is that what if the health issue is caused by people not eating enough animal products? I kid you not.
If you do weigh, let's say, the taste of milk, that's what you have on one side, and then the difference between like oat milk and normal milk to the suffering of a cow. Those are on your two sides. What if the problem with reducing your animal intake is actually chronic health problems, and then what you have on one side is an increase in chronic health problems, and then that's suffering compared to the life of an animal?
This delusion is about the cause of ill health. So if you can shift the blame of ill health into plants and away from animal products, then you can literally change the maths on how you're weighing up the benefits of eating animals that you have to kill versus plants which are not non-sentient beings. The problem with this what if is it's a what if, because the leading cause of death in the world is cardiovascular disease. And the way to reduce your risks of a heart attack is having a plant-based diet. So it just doesn't add up. What this boils down to is the maths that they're really looking at is how much do I prefer the taste of meat versus my conscience about the death of the animals that result in that. And the final one is all former vegans have said the exact same claims they're making about the new carnivore diet, about the previous vegan diet. And they even admit it. Some of the brave ones do, at least.
One of the criticisms that I've got time and time again was, oh, well, when you were vegan, you must have been saying this stuff also. And I was.
See, my theory of what happens is they go on a plant-based diet, they overdo the sugar or processed foods, they start to feel not good, and then they blame being vegan rather than the junk foods that they're eating. They then switch up their diet and start this new thing and go on some kind of, intense detox because they're only having one food source, and it's a sugar detox, and then they feel better, and then they make proclamations about how good this diet is, but then they remember how good it felt when they first stopped eating those foods, and then they delete the old videos that they used to proclaim how healthy they feel. Now, the fact of the matter is, there are many, many, many vegan testimonies still online and they're still vegan, that profess how good it feels to be a vegan. And I'm going to play some of those now.
Hi guys, Ryan Adams here from naturalweightlossmastery.com. I'm just over 1 week short of 3 years on a vegan diet, so I thought I'd turn on the camera and kind of reflect or really document a couple of thoughts I have on my journey or my transformation. I was a little bit podgy, I'm not afraid to admit that. I was pretty chunky back then. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am right now. My skin was actually pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I had a bit of acne and I had a few kind of gassy or bloating issues. But when you've been doing something for so long, over a couple of years, let's say, like I have been now, and you're living it day to day, you don't really notice the progress anymore. You kind of get conditioned and it all becomes very normal to you. So it's only when I really make videos like this and kind of tell my story and think back to 3 years ago that I'm so grateful for everything that's happened.
And that testimony for veganism is indistinguishable from the testimonies I've heard from ex-vegans who took up the carnivore diet. It's indistinguishable. So what would you then think if that person then came out and made a video like this?
My point is that I was attempting to say that I was having these benefits as a vegan when they weren't actually there. I was lying to myself.
What I want you to take from this is there is no super diet. So don't listen to the super claims. There is a way to eat, right, which doesn't cause any harm to animals, and it makes you feel pretty good. And it makes you feel a lot better than most of the food is out of there on a long-term basis. It may not have the same punch as a very restricted diet that you do for a while, but most people fall off. And I like this vegan testimony because I think it's very, very grounded and very, very realistic and can apply to a lot of people.
The thing that I have missed over the last 10 years of being vegan has been fleeting, and it hasn't ever been enough to make me think, you know what, I don't want to be vegan anymore, because I have such a strong belief system around the morals and ethics when it comes to being vegan. I don't miss anything enough to justify wanting to not be vegan anymore. Yes, of course, previously I used to love eating things like dairy milk and Galaxy and cheese and, you know, even seafood, but I don't sit here thinking about it because there's amazing vegan chocolates, there are incredible vegan cheeses and alternatives. I love to cook and make my own versions of things. So nothing, I don't miss anything beyond the point of wanting to actually not be vegan anymore.
My conclusion from all of this is not to say that you can't gain benefits from doing some kind of mono diet. And the carnivore diet, to me, is a mono diet. But with all mono diets, what happens is you do get short-term gains, but it's mostly because of the foods that you're leaving out. But like all mono diets, you end up not being able to stick to it. And then you start bringing in other things and you're back to where you started. The right way to address your health issues on a plant-based diet is to do an elimination diet, but do an elimination of the rubbish that you're eating. Number one, get out the refined sugar. Number two, get out the highly refined carbohydrates. Number three, look at any refined oils that you're eating. All of this is available all over the internet. So you don't use the excuse that you're eating the more harmful foods that just happen to be vegan, right? And that's causing issues. So now your remedy is to switch completely over to eating only animal flesh. That's radical. That is absolutely radical. And over time, I can assure you that only the staunchest people, the most radical people, will stay on a carnivore diet long term. I've been around the health field. I've fallen into fad diets. And when I've looked, what I've seen is 1 or 2 people at the top who are very good at it and selling it as a business, and then you might have some influencers or chefs or whatever the next level down, and it's become a lifestyle business for them, so they're sticking to it, and everyone else is listening to the promises and trying it for themselves, and they're not even able to do it. There's very, very few people that can just literally eat a steak for breakfast, lunch and dinner over and over and over. So if you really want to deal with your health issues, find someone who knows what they're talking about, reach out, get guidance, and cultivate a plant-based diet that works for you, works for the planet, and works for the animals. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share with anyone you think might find it interesting. And we will see you in the next one. Let's stay plant-based.